We start with the 5 weights and go down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we use the super contest lines. Steve Fezzik, what do you got as your 5-weight best bet?
Arizona, -2.5, hosting Seattle. I've been betting this for 2 weeks, RJ. I gave this out on the look ahead at the money line -130. -2.5 is a little bit worse, but not that much worse. The spot is great for Arizona, and I'm going to make the case. This Arizona team, even though they've got good stats, so yards per play, I'm old school. They gain just under 6 yards per play. They give up 5.4. That's very good. But if you normalize these stats, let me read the schedule. We've done this before on previous pods, so I'll be fast. They have played Buffalo, Rams, Detroit, Washington, at San Francisco, back when the Niners were better, at Green Bay, Chargers, at Miami with Tua, at Seattle, at Minnesota, and then they had 2 games against Chicago and the Jets. So they played 2 slightly below average teams and nonstop playoff contenders. That is a juggernaut of epic proportions.
If you look at Neflo has them with the toughest schedule to date. The Cardinals, 3.4 points better than an average team. The worst team is the Chargers, -1.8. So you're looking at about 5 points of difference in quality opposition between the worst and the best, Arizona being the best.
Wow.
Or hardest.
Now, I know Seattle's played a hard schedule, too. Do you have Seattle's number?
Seattle, they've got not near as hard. They got them number 14.
Okay. All right. So it's harder than average, but no comparison to Arizona.
Exactly.
And the spot is great for Arizona. And let me make my case. Arizona's 0-2. Everyone's like, they're not playing as well as they were. They're playing fine. They went to the Pacific Northwest. They played the Seattle team, equal in the stats. Murray threw a pick 6, like 70-yarder, and they lost by 10. Then they played Minnesota. They outplayed the Vikings. I think McKenzie had a win share, if you check out our Monday pod, where this is the rare case where the losing team had like a 2/3 chance of winning the game.
Yep.
And ultimately the Vikings got the Vikings were down 3. Arizona had the ball in the red zone on the 5-yard line, couldn't get in the end zone, kicked a field goal, lost by 1. So I would make the case Arizona's playing just fine the last 2 weeks, and I love the recent revenge. I love just 2 weeks ago.
Well, Fez, I'm going to support your argument here, and I'm going to give you the numbers because this is also my 4-weight on the Arizona Cardinals. You mentioned the revenge spot. Since 2012, when you are playing an opponent for the second time in 3 weeks and you lost the previous matchup. Now, we have 2 games that fit this week. One of them is this game. The other one is actually going to be my 5-weight.
Steelers.
Correct. I'll tell you more about that game coming up. But if you lost that first game, the second game in the 3-week span, 24-14 ATS by 3.7 points per game. When you are the home team in that second game, like the Cardinals are here, 16-5 ATS by 7 points per game. When you are the favorite overall, 6-2 ATS. When you're the home favorite, 5-1 ATS.
Yeah. So that core, when that core number is that good, I think winnowing down just confuses it. I mean, that number, you're saying, is it 16-5?
16-5 ATS when you are the home team in the second game.
And how long does that go back?
Since 2012, I looked.
And the trend makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Because NFL is a league of adjustments. And the team that loses is going to tinker with whatever they did. And the team that won's like, well, we'll just do what we did last time. And that favors the team that recently lost. And I think the closer, ideally they'd play back-to-back, which never happens in the NFL. I am also on the under for a 3-weight in this game. I read Arizona's opponents.
So let's do that. Let's talk about the side first,
Sure.
if you don't mind.
Yes.
Can I give one more anti-Seattle part of this?
Yes.
The travel spot is brutal for them. They played at home in Seattle, then traveled to the East Coast to play in New Jersey, and now travel back West Coast, Mountain, whatever, to play in Arizona.
Now, do we know, did they go home?
I don't know.
I'm thinking they did.
I'm almost sure they did.
Yeah. Okay. Now, the only thing I would say about the travel is it's true, but San Fran, Seattle, they're used to having the most travel, but still, it's going to be tiring. So I think it's a very good point. Let me play not devil's advocate, but let me give the clear counter. This line is expensive. I mean, what does your pure power rating say, Fez?
On a neutral, I got Arizona -1. So 2.5. I got -2.5. So I'd say the line is fair.
Okay. Now, you said when I critique your lines or your power ratings, you'll often say, I'm right in market. Right. What do you think? What is market? Are you a little better relatively on Arizona?
Can we pull up Sam Hoppin and take a look? I think I'm in lockstep with the market,
take a gander.
But I might not be because
Arizona is consensus 12 at 1.6,
and I got them 2.
No, I'm sorry. The composite is 1.5,
and I got them 2.
12.
Okay.
Seattle is consensus 19 at minus 0.1.
All right, so I'm in lockstep with the market.
No, that doesn't sound like lock. I mean, that sounds like. So do me a favor. Because all the numbers again get confusing. What is the difference, Scott, between the two teams? That's all I need. The difference. Simple subtraction.
1.6, right?
Yes.
Yep.
It's 1.6 different.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Give me the numbers one more time. I guess I was confused by it.
1.5 for the Cardinals at 12, negative 0.1 for the Seahawks.
Negative 0.1.
That looks low for Seattle.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So if you believe in that number, I think this is a great pick. And I guess I'm not sure. I'm pretty not sure about that number.
Because we're not getting taxed at all.
Yeah, which again, I mean, I'm not saying the average fan is the way to think about much, but when it comes to betting, but I think if you walk down the street and ask the average fan who's better, Seattle and Arizona, I think you're going to get slightly more Seattles.
I agree.
Than Arizona. That doesn't mean it's right.
That's why, I mean, they're in first place in the division, but I think you could make the case if you look at the divisional odds, the wise guys think otherwise because, I mean, obviously if Arizona doesn't win this game, they're going to be donezo for the division, and yet they have basically the same odds as Seattle to win the division, right, Mackenzie?
Yeah, they're
That's
like
right.
plus 170 or something each?
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, I think the fact that the fact that Arizona is going to have tiebreakers if they win this game and the game's at home makes it a little deceived. I mean, I think they are considered slightly better. Arizona. I would agree with that. Let me see. I mean, again, I like net flow. I mean, I like an aggregation ideally because every ratings have their limitations.
Net flow has the gap of being a little bit bigger. They have 2.0 difference. Cardinals at 2.9. Seahawks at 0.7.
All right, so
2.2 difference.
2.2 difference. Okay. All right. So then what I'm going to do is defer on this point. And if anything, this was a very strong point for you guys, which is, the average fan is going to think these are even teams, and thus 2.5 is a little expensive, but they're not even teams. See, I just, this is the feeling. And again, a feeling isn't, I like feelings to stop me from making plays. I don't like them to lead me to making plays. But my feeling is that Seattle's way underrated because they were so bad. There was about 3 or 4. I think the disparity between Seattle's play the beginning of the year and the last 3 or 4 weeks, with those 3 or 4 weeks in the middle, or not even the middle, but from like week 4 to 7 or so, I think those 3 or 4 weeks they played injury-wise, they were so decimated that it feels like maybe the seasonal stuff is a little skewed. Because remember, those power ratings, especially the mathematical ones like NetFlow, are purely what happened in this game. It's almost like an ELO type. In fact, I think it is a variation of the ELO stuff, whereas the results dictate the movement. It's not about saying, now some of them systems have the quarterback adjustments, but for like multiple linemen, multiple defenders, they don't. But still, if I was picking all over again, I would be right where you guys are, and I did just think it was expensive.
And it could be Mike McDonald's, that the players are getting used to the system and that is gelling, certainly.
I think a rookie coach who's good in theory, and I think a lot of people like him, there is a trend line. So
if you just look at the defense, since they come back from their bye week, so that's 3 games, week 11, 12, and 13, they have the second best EPA per play on defense, only behind the Lions.
Who's that?
The Seahawks. Seahawks.
Pronouns.
Which makes sense, getting a new coach. From weeks 4 to weeks 10, that big stretch in the middle you're talking about, they were 30th on defense.
I mean, this just shows you guys how smart the line has gotten because, correct me if I'm wrong, Arizona has lost 2 in a row?
Yes.
And both games were, you could make the case they played well. I mean, not that they should have won, but they played well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they played okay against Seattle. They didn't.
Oh, you're
great.
right. You're right. It was like 16-6.
Yeah.
Okay.
The stats were even.
What does that game give you Does that game worry you, or is that a home field? Because I remember, I think you liked Seattle in that game. In fact, I had Arizona, and maybe I'm a little snake bit because I had Arizona in that game.
No, not at all. Because I said, Arizona. It was kind of a blustery day in the Pacific Northwest, which I said favored Seattle, and that was a big reason. And so Seattle was the underdog. So think about this. Just 2 weeks ago, you could have bet, if you bet Arizona at Seattle, you had to lay minus 120. All right.
So it has moved. Yeah.
So, but now. The game's in Arizona. So, the wrong time to bet Arizona was when they were a 1.5 point favorite 2 weeks ago. The right time to bet them is to lay 2.5 now.
You could almost say 4 points swing because Seattle has such, 2 seems like a lot both ways now, but with Seattle's home field and with the fact that Arizona shockingly has the most, and Mackenzie, if you want to check this when you have a minute, but over the last X number of years, I don't have the exact number, there's the most false starts against the opponent, whereas the crowd noise, in theory, that's a surrogate for or a proxy for crowd noise, right? Can you get the snap off without emotion? Yeah. And Arizona actually somehow engenders the most pre-snap penalties in the visitor as any team. So if we say 4 points.
Well, just to be clear, Arizona's been favored in both these games. Arizona,
no, I understand.
Yeah, right.
The point I'm saying is it hasn't moved enough.
Right.
What I'm saying
it's
is
moved only 1, and it should have moved 4. Yeah.
They were like remember a couple weeks ago it was Arizona either -1 or +1. I think we had it in the contest at -1. So let's say -1 to -2.5 is 1.5 points, and it should have moved 4.
Yes.
No, you're right. This is a good pick. All right, so you got the total too.
Yeah, so let me make a case for the total here. If you look at the stats, this 44.5 looks spot on because 44.5 is pretty much an average total right now. And if you look at both teams defensively, kind of mediocre yards per play numbers. They're both giving up 5.4 yards per play. But it's the schedule, RJ. Both these teams have had to face a schedule. I've read Arizona's schedule with all these good offensive teams, including the Buffaloes, the Detroits, the Washingtons, the Rams. But Seattle, same division, they've had a similar situation. They started out with 3 under teams, but since then, they have played a chock full schedule of higher scoring teams just recently. Buffalo, Rams, San Francisco, Arizona, and now the Jets that have morphed into more of an over team. But it's not so much San Francisco or Seattle. It's really that Arizona has just played so many great offenses, average defenses, that that 5.4 yards per play that they're giving up is actually a stellar number, not an average number.
Arizona actually has not allowed a touchdown in their last 3 home games. 26 total drives by the Jets, Bears, and Chargers, and have not allowed a touchdown.
And plus, if you look at their first matchup, it played way under.
Way under, exactly. And I also love the fact Seattle just played an over game against the Jets. 47 points, Fez. What are you doing? Well, not just the Jets, but Seattle. Both teams gained under 300 yards. It was a dead nut under game, but there was just multiple fluke touchdowns that caused that game to get over.
One thing causes me a little pause on the total, which is if you have a rematch very quickly, if there's an extreme result, it tends to reverse itself a little bit. And I don't think that's strong enough I don't like the total as much as I've listened to you guys. I like the side. But I do think this recommends the total a little bit, which is these teams with these staffs aren't used to games that are playoff stakes. Right? This is a playoff stake kind of game for a rookie coach in Seattle, right? A head coach, and a coach that has never coached as a head coach in Arizona, such a big game. This is the biggest head coaching games of either of these guys' career in a way.
And both defensive head coaches.
Yeah, it's a great point. And because of that, the little things like running a fake punt from midfield, boy, that's easy to do when you're playing the Carolina Panthers in week 4. It's a lot harder to do when if it fails, you're going to be second guessed to the moon, right? And it's human nature. RJ, when I played in the main event, I don't recall like stone cold bluffing like I do when I play 2-5. Let's put it that way.
When's the last time you played in the main event?
Gosh, it's been like, I'm getting old. It's like 20 years.
What about when you're in this? Now, do they have a super seniors?
60, yeah.
No, that's seniors, isn't it?
No, seniors is 50.
Oh, they're super seniors.
Yeah, I've cashed in the seniors. I played. I was going to play in the super seniors. It's just such a commitment to have to play 2 straight days.
Okay, so you're saying that's interesting, and your theory is, hey, if there's not these hyper aggressive younger players, it's a little easier pool.
Oh, no doubt. It's very much a soft field compared to these. I mean, who the heck? What are you going to do when you have like aces and the flop comes 10, 9, 6 with 2 hearts and you bet and someone jams on you?
Well, if you have a buffet comp, you either get a nice but leisurely buffet.
If it's an old guy, I fold without even thinking. If it's a young kid, Jesus, who knows?